In this video, I'm going to be deconstructing the scientific method. We're going to start with the placebo effect. Now, I don't like the term placebo because it's really just your will and your belief and how they affect things. But we'll stick with the term placebo for now because we're going to deconstruct the scientific method through science's own philosophy. Let's imagine a study of 100 candidates, and all of them have a headache. 50 of them at random will be given a placebo pill, and the other 50 will be given some new headache medication. Maybe a handful of the placebo subjects had their headache go away. Maybe none of them had their headaches go away. It frankly doesn't matter. Because for the people that had their headaches go away, the placebo effect still has an influence on the results. Meaning, just because someone has their headache go away with the real medication doesn't mean the placebo isn't still in effect. And this is something you can't really account for. The placebo is going to work alongside whether the medication is real or not. This applies to every field of study, not just medicine. It could be physics, chemistry, biology, astronomy, mathematics, psychology. The placebo is an unaccounted variable in every single interaction of humans, whether it's in a lab or not. But we can take this further. Every bit of matter contains electrons, and electrons react to anything that engages with them. This is why the speed and location of an electron can't be known simultaneously, because the mere act of observing an electron will exert an influence on it. This doesn't just apply to an electron microscope. Whenever you interact with any sort of matter, your charge, your electricity, is going to exert an influence on electrons. So any scientist or researcher conducting an experiment is an uncontrolled variable within that equation. Whether they're aware of it or not, whether they're in a double blind, whether they believe that they are remaining objective. To say nothing of the interpretation of any results. The scientific method is built on this framework that states belief has no bearing in the outcome of an experiment. In order to build up from that foundation, the scientific method has to be believed in, that it has accurately and immutably defined the causality of one thing to another. The laws seek to define how one thing connects and supports the other within an entire system. What's defined as objective reality of empirical evidence of truth or laws, in short, the rules of this scientific framework, is an imagination. The scientific method proposes causality in a universe which is not confined to that rule. Every single study, every single experiment conducted through the scientific method has not accounted for every variable. And you can't account for the placebo, for the belief, for the way in which your system interacts with the electrons of the matter in which you study. Even the mindset or personality of a researcher is going to influence the subject of their study, and of course, the interpretation of those results. Each generation of science builds upon the previous findings and assumes that you have something such as empirical data that allows you to continue to progress information. Just because you have words like objective reality, the scientific method, laws, theories, empirical, data, logical, doesn't mean that the definition of those words are imbued to what it is that you're doing. It is only the belief of science that it can use the definition of something like fact and have it apply to things that it's researched or conclusions it's reached. Again, every single piece of data, experiment, or test conducted through the scientific method has not accounted for those variables. Herein lies the main difference between alchemy and science. The alchemists considered their own personality as part of the equation. You had to be a good person. You had to talk to these elements. Indeed, each of the elements were unique, not just as separate elements, but from one element to another of the same variety. There were no two identical pieces of plant or metal within the same species. Two plants of the same kind could have different results. They considered that. They considered the time of day, the position of stars. They considered how they were feeling, how the elements were reacting. They thanked these different elements and tried to implore them for their cooperation in their experiments. From our perspective and with our terminology, they used the placebo and they accounted for the influence of every source of energy, every source of possible exerting force on every element. In other words, how the electron could be different in any given situation, in any given setting. And if we take a look at the history of science from Tesla to Einstein to Oppenheimer, Carl Sagan, most of these big names in science were not good people. They were highly prejudiced, they were terrible to their families, they were vile people, and they conducted vile research. That changes the results and it produces a bleak outlook, which is what science is. It's predetermined with immutable laws and rules that only demonstrate how bleak and vile the practice comes from. Most of the information from science comes from torturing animals, sacrificing animals, and experimenting on people. If it takes 100 mice to develop a new drug, the weregild or the blood price is not worth it. You're doing medicine or research wrong if it requires you to kill other beings just to save your own. Just take a look at the state of the ecosystem of farming, of raising livestock, of medical system, of any field of science. It's completely deprived of the animism and life of the universe. And it's because these scientists are constantly building off the knowledge and work of sacrificing and torturing animals and other organisms. Even if they're working with metals or other materials, they're torturing them and negatively changing the electrons by their cruelty. Science would have more redeeming qualities if it didn't bury some of their most brilliant minds, such as Lamarck. But Lamarckism would require scientists to believe in responsibility, that what you do and how you think and what you believe has an influence not only on your physiology, but on your environment and the work that you do and even the children that you produce. The world is not bound by the rules of causality that were conditioned and construed by science. This electrical universe should be more closely compared to a fractal web where the points of energy connect non-causally and they change. It's not all held together by rigid walls that only connect in the ways that you believe them to be. The threads of connection, they never stay still. What a belief system is an attempt to constellate a certain pattern, and you assume that through reinforcement you can always make that so. And it's true, it does have some effect, some influence on it, just in the way that any sort of placebo does, any sort of will or belief. You're putting the electrical energy into it, which influences and exerts change in matter in the electrons. But true to the electron, true to matter and the universe, when you take a simple snapshot of how you think reality is, you're already behind in the next second. A belief system, including science, takes a freeze frame of some aspect of this web and it assumes that this web is unchanging, but it isn't. It's always moving. There's always innervation or fluxes of energy. When you write something, whether it's a law or a rule or a dogma or a piece of data, you're trying to petrify something which is unpetrifiable. I talk about these things in much greater detail in Exoterica, the Red Queen hypothesis, the circuitry of belief, the injunctions, the rules and laws, the codifying of ideas and conditioning, as well as the difference between the storytelling tradition and through the laws of a written society. I bring that up because I understand it's nuanced and complex. There have been positive things that have come from science. In my opinion, there are better ways of operating, of getting information that don't involve the torturing and harm to the earth and to other people. The benefits in the case of science do not outweigh the costs of obtaining that knowledge. There are other ways that don't involve the destruction of animals and the bleakness of believing in such a predetermined existence. What people do and how they do it within the framework of their rules matter. The placebo, the unique belief and will of a person, that matters. Thanks for watching.